Today we're going to look at Genesis chapter 10 and chapter 11. Chapter 10 is basically the beginning of the nations, the sons of Noah, and they're the descendants, and this begins the different nations. And then in verse 32 in chapter 10 it says, "These are the families of the sons of Noah after their generations in their nations, and by these were the nations divided in the earth after the flood." So you see there we know where the nations came from, where all the people on the earth came from, is from these three sons of Noah. Genesis chapter 1 through Genesis chapter 11 is basically one major section of the book of Genesis, and then from chapter 12 to the end it will be the story of Abraham and his family in Israel. But the first 11 chapters are basically the story of how the world was created, how man fell and sinned, and then the flood and Noah, and then the nations after that. So Genesis chapter 11 is basically the culmination of the narrative or the account of mankind in general. And after this chapter, it goes from talking about the whole world and the human race, and it zeroes in on one man and his family, Abraham. Genesis chapter 11 has an interesting story here about the Tower of Babel. "And the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. And it came to pass, as they journeyed from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And they said one to another, Go to, let us make brick, and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone, and slime had they for mortar. And they said, Go to, let us build us a city and a tower, whose top may reach into heaven. And let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the children of men builded. And the Lord said, Behold, the people is one, and they have all one language, and this they begin to do. And now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do. Go to, let us go down, and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city. Therefore is the name of it called Babel, because the Lord did there confound the language of all the earth. And from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of all the earth." So many people read this, and they completely get the wrong idea, as if building this tower was a good idea, because it wasn't. This was not a good idea. This is not a good situation, because basically God wanted man to spread out over all the face of the earth. But these people said, let us make a name for ourselves and build a city and a tower. Okay, so basically men are going to live in one of two ways. Either they're going to live according to the name of the Lord, or they're going to live according to their own name. And these men were rebellious against God and wanted to live according to their own name. And so the reason why they didn't want to scatter their numbers, but they wanted to gather all their numbers into one place and bring all of their numbers under one name, is so that they could build. This is the beginning of the world system, which is, if you think about it, it's kind of like a triangle, and you have a name at the top, and you bring all these numbers underneath of it. And this is how the world system works. You have the pride of man, who exalts himself and makes a name for himself. And then he brings all the numbers of the people underneath his name in order to establish his influence and prestige and power, so that he can provide for himself and protect himself. And of course, he himself is his own prize. And so what you see here is something that was very evil that these people were doing. Not just because they wanted to build a tower to reach up into heaven, but because this whole idea that they had was a man-made system of life that was independent from God. And so God comes down and he puts an end to it by disrupting their language. And so this is where you have all the different languages that are in the world today. This is where it started, where that God did this. Today, and a lot of this one world propaganda that you see today, they talk about undoing the Babylon effect or the Babel effect, and that they want to get some kind of a computer language that everybody can speak, or that computers can interpret every language so that everybody can understand everybody else's language. So I understand why they're doing that, but there is something that is behind that. There's something behind the one world order. And so this story kind of tells you, or helps you to understand, why Christians are so against a new world order, or a one world order, because this is anti-Christ. It is against God when men gather themselves together and make a name for themselves independent from God. And so you see this happening again. This whole thing that happened here at the Tower of Babel is happening all over again today, with all this talk about a new world order and a one world order. And it's going to come to pass. The book of Revelation makes it very clear that people are going to once again there's going to be one world economic order, and that nobody's going to be able to buy or sell unless they have the mark of the beast, which is a mark on their right hand or on their forehead. So this whole thing here is coming back. I mean, this is all coming back again, but this time when the cup of iniquity is full and God brings judgment upon it, this time it's not going to happen again. This is going to be the last time this is going to happen, when it happens again. Therefore, the name of it is called Babel. And so don't let anybody deceive you into thinking that what was going on here was good, because there's a lot of propaganda out there where people are wanting to rebuild. You even see this in the propaganda surrounding 9/11, that people are going to rebuild, but the spirit behind that is the spirit of Babel, spirit of Babylon, where it's basically the pride of man. So anyway, those are my thoughts on the Tower of Babel. There's a lot more to it that I could talk about. I could talk about it for a long time. But at the end of chapter 11, we see here that the scripture begins to introduce Abraham and Sarah, and they're, of course, but right here they're called Abram and Sarai, and it begins to introduce their story in verse 30. It says, but Sarai was barren, she had no child. So that's going to be significant in the story of Abram and Sarai. And it says and Terah took Abram his son, and Lot the son of Haran his son's son, and Sarai his daughter-in-law, his son's Abraham's wife, and they went forth with them from Ur of the Chaldees to go into the land of Canaan. And they came unto Haran and dwelt there. And the days of Terah were 205 years, and Terah died in Haran. So already you see the lifespan of men was greatly reduced already after the flood. The men were not living nearly as long as they had lived before the flood. All right, so that completes my thoughts on Genesis chapter 10 and Genesis chapter 11. I pray the Lord will bless you and keep you, and the Lord make his face to shine upon you, and the Lord give you peace. And guys, we'll see you in the next video. And until then, God bless you.